Hey, welcome to episode number 16 of the Practical EdTech Podcast. It's 3:15 on Friday afternoon, October 25th. I just got home from school and it's time to record this week's episode. So as usual, I have some news and notes from the world of EdTech, some thoughts from my classroom, and the answers to a handful of questions from readers and viewers and listeners like you. So let's jump right into it with the first big piece of news to share, news and notes. I'm putting together a free online conference for teachers by teachers. It's happening in December 10th through 12th. It's called the Practical EdTech Creativity Conference. It's a free event, no strings attached other than you need to put in your email address and your name. That's it. The call for proposals is open right now. If you go to practicaledtech.com, it is featured on the homepage, and you can put in your proposal for your presentation. 30 to 45-minute presentations spread across 3 days. Got a couple of cool folks already signed up to give presentations, including my good friend Tony Vincent, who is amazing and is doing a presentation about graphics, and you don't want to miss that one for sure. So if you're interested in that, go to practicaledtech.com and you'll find information about that. Some other news and notes from the week. Wakelet, which seems to be more and more popular every single week, introduced a new read mode this week, and the read mode lets you view an entire article instead of just a link. Instead of just clicking a link and opening it in a new tab on the original site, you can read the text of an entire article directly in your Wakelet collection, and you can use the Immersive Reader tool along with that. Now, as someone who makes a little bit of money, not much, but a little bit of money through advertising revenue, I have some mixed feelings about that. But from a perspective of making it easier for students to read, I'm all for that. So you can check that out at wakelet.com. If you go to wakelet.com right now, that'll be a featured thing when you go to sign in. Halloween is 6 days away. My kids are excited about it, both my students and my actual children, my toddlers. Very excited about it. It's a week away. If you're still looking for some classroom decoration type of materials, or even decorations for your house, I guess, Canva, C-A-N-V-A, Canva, the graphic design tool, they have a nice little collection of templates with a Halloween theme. You can check those out at canva.com and just search for Halloween on their site, and you'll find all their Halloween templates for all kinds of little flyers or posters or invitations to things, whatever kind of graphic you might use. And speaking of Halloween, ReadWorks and Quill, two tools that I really like. ReadWorks is a great place to find some articles for your students to read. They're all categorized according to Lexile and grade level. There's a lot of questions that go along with it. Quill is a good tool for students to get some practice and lessons on grammar and writing. Anyway, they've teamed up to offer a writing contest, a Halloween writing contest, where students in 5th grade to 8th grade have to complete or kind of write their own ending to a series of short stories called The Run. It's a little zombie story, and students have to write their own endings. Submissions are due by November 1st, so if you're looking for something to do next week, at the beginning of the week with your kids, that's a nice little writing assignment you could do. Some other things to share from this week. Facebook has begun rolling out a new news tabs. Now, according to their press release, it's only available to 200,000 users so far, so it's a very small group of users, and when you consider how many users Facebook has. But they have a new news tab that's going to feature articles from trusted news sources. I'm putting trusted in air quotes because they are legacy news providers. You know, your Wall Street journals, ABC, Fox News is in there. So there's a bunch of different providers in there. It's being rolled out gradually. Along with that, Google this week posted a blog post about a new initiative that they are funding called MediaWise. And I've taken a look at it, and of course there was a lot of spin in Google's press release about it, as you might expect. But what MediaWise is, it appears to be mostly a rebranding of Stanford's Civic Online Reasoning curriculum. The idea being that students will fact-check news articles or fact-check articles and see, dig into whether or not the articles are real or fake or real or misleading. One of the things I found kind of interesting about it when I dug into it and looked at their featured ambassadors for the program and some of the people who are teaching the program, they're all decidedly left-leaning. Now, this is not to get into a political rant or a political thing at all, but I think it's worth noting because when I was teaching social studies, this always came up of, how do you decide, how do you teach something without any kind of bias in it, particularly when it comes to news media? And so it's just worth noting, I think, is probably the best way to say that. It's worth noting that the featured ambassadors for the program are definitely left-leaning. So, and we should all be doing that. We should all be looking at, is the panel or the people presenting the things when it comes to fact-checking and news media and social studies, even in history. When we're looking at 200-year-old history, we should be looking at who's telling those stories and how the story is being told. I always talk about it with my students as well, or talked about it with my students as well. And to end this section on a little lighter note, Kapwing. Kapwing is a really cool tool. You'll find it at kapwing.com, kapwing.com. It's a great little tool for making short little animated videos and GIFs, or GIFs, depending on how you want to say it. GIFs, tomato. They have version 2.0, just came out this week, and version 2.0 includes real-time collaboration. Previously, you couldn't do that. So now it's kind of like Google Docs for making videos and GIFs, or videos and GIFs, however you want to say that. So check that out. It's a really cool tool. I love it. Kapwing.com. You should note that the free program will delete your work after 7 days. So you want to make sure you save your work, download your work. If you're using the free version of it, the paid version of it will keep your work forever, or as long as you keep paying them, I suppose. All right. So, some reflections and thoughts from this week in my classroom. Number one, I'm tired. I'm tired. My students wore me out this week. I don't know if it's the end of the quarter coming up or there's something in the air. We're at the time of year right now in Maine where it is still dark when we're going to school. It's still dark when we're starting school. This morning it was my headlights were on at school when I got there this morning. So I don't know what it is, but my kids were exhausting this week, and I don't have that many of them. I have 23, but I have, I had a few that just wore me out, which leads me into my other thought about this is that you can plan until the cows come home, but if you have a couple of kids who can't or won't stay on task, they can really disrupt the progress of your entire plan. So, again, these are things I knew, but I just was reminded of it with like a slap in the face, figuratively, from a couple of my students this week. And on a little lighter note about that, we did learn this week, me and a couple of my students, that the screw heads on the back of a multimeter can strip out really easily if you use the wrong size screwdriver. I have a couple of multimeters in my classroom right now, sitting on my desk right now, that I now need to figure out a way to get the screws out of because they got stripped out by students who weren't paying attention to what they were supposed to be doing. So that's that. I'll be working on that next week. All right, so to wrap up this edition of the podcast, some questions from readers, listeners, and viewers like you. First question came from Janet, who wrote, I am looking for online royalty-free resources for students and teachers to find music and other recordings such as historical speeches for their presentations/creations. I've found Bensound, but I know I've used others in the past. I guess I'm just having a senior moment. LOL. Any help you might offer would be appreciated. So the thing I wrote back to Janet with was archive.org, the Internet Archive. Hundreds of thousands of audio clips in there that are in the public domain and or Creative Commons that you can download as spoken tracks, musical tracks, all kinds of stuff. The one caveat about that is, as the teacher or the librarian, you should go there and get a collection of things and download them for your students. The Internet Archive is not filtered really in any way, so keep that in mind. The other thing I'd recommend is check out the Library of Congress. The Library of Congress, particularly the National Jukebox, but other sections of the Library of Congress have some great materials that you can download as well. And again, mostly in the public domain. All right, question came from Isabel. I'd like to ask you the following. I've been using Google Classroom on my individual personal Gmail. Now my school has got itself a G Suite account and gave each teacher a new Gmail account. Should I change my Google Classroom classes to this new mail? Are there more functionalities of Google Classroom when working in a G Suite account? What are the main differences? Thanks. So functionally, they function the same. The difference is that your G Suite for Education account will be technically administered by your local domain administrator, your IT administrator. The other thing is that now your students will have to, if you switch over to use G Suite for Education and Google Classroom, your students will have to be in that domain too. So if your students have already signed up using their Gmail accounts, they're going to have to sign into your new classroom using their new G Suite accounts as well. Otherwise, they function the same way. If it was me and I'd already started my semester and I'm halfway through my semester with one Google Classroom, I would not switch midstream. I'd switch next semester. That's me. That's what I do. In fact, that is what I'm doing. All right. So I got another question here, and it came from Maria, who says, Hi, Richard. I follow you on Twitter. Appreciate all your info for free technology for teachers. I'm a technology specialist. Google Classroom management question. I like Google Classroom. Do you know why when students turn in work through Google Classroom, it continues to appear in my Shared With Me folder? If I delete it from Shared With Me, it will delete it from Google Classroom folder as well. So, yes, because when students turn in an assignment to you, they are technically sharing it with you, which is why it appears as a shared file as well as a Google Classroom folder file. And yes, if you delete it from your shared file, from your shared folder, it's going to delete it from there as well. It's going to delete it from both places. So that's why. Laureen sent me a question and asked, I hope you don't mind a question, but I remember people discussing that Google Classroom should not be utilized by teachers to collaborate with each other. Teachers setting up a classroom, inviting other teachers to join it. Is that correct? If so, why? Thank you. Love your emails. I've learned so much from you. Well, thank you. I'm glad you like the emails. Thank you for subscribing. And Lorraine was replying to my Practical Ed Tech Tip of the Week, which comes out on Sunday nights or Monday morning, depending on your time zone. So, to answer a question, I've used Google Classroom for professional development for teachers to collaborate. I don't see any problem with doing that. Tony Vincent, who I mentioned earlier in the podcast, he teaches an entire online course using Google Classroom. So yeah, I don't see a problem with using Google Classroom for professional development or for teachers to collaborate. If you're just looking to share files, a Google Drive shared folder might be a better option. Might be a little more streamlined. But if you need to have discussions, if you're in a PLC or a PLG and you want to have some discussions along with sharing some files, then yeah, set up a Google Classroom for that. But if you're just trying to share resources within your department, if you're all history teachers and you want to just share a whole bunch of cool resources you've made or found, a shared Google Drive might do the trick for that as well. And the last question that I have for this week came from Dawn. And Dawn wrote, can I search through previous posts of yours some way to search for a specific topic? For example, I'm a Spanish teacher looking for sites that students can orally practice speaking and receive a transcript in Spanish in which they can see how well their pronunciation was. Thank you, Dawn. So on freetechforteachers.com, you can search the archives. There is a search function in the upper right-hand corner. You won't see it on the mobile version of the site. You'll only see it on the desktop version of the site. I should point that out. So you can go there and search. And I've got 12 years of archives there. The archives sometimes will take you to a link that's dead because I have 15,000 blog posts. I haven't had time to update all of them yet. So you can look that way. On Practical EdTech, which is mostly just my newsletter, I don't have a search function yet, but I am working on that so you can look at previous issues of the newsletter. And as for your question about Spanish, Duolingo will probably do the trick for you. So check out Duolingo. I believe that will do the trick for you. So that's it. I believe that's it. I will share one last little personal thought. It's been a tough week for me. Kids were exhausting. Weather's been kind of here. And, some of the things have not gone so well. And I wrote a blog post on edtechfitness.com on Tuesday. Basically, the gist of it being, when things aren't going well, you've got two choices. You can drink a glass of wine or you can exercise. And I always find that exercise helps me out a lot more than drinking a glass of wine does. So, if you're headed into the weekend, maybe you're where I am and things aren't going as well as you'd like them to go in some aspect of your life, or maybe all aspects of your life. Get out, do some exercise. It's the hardest thing to do is the first 5 minutes of exercise. After that, it gets a lot easier and you'll feel a hell of a lot better than if you just sat down and had a glass of wine or a beer or whatever your vice is. So that's my parting thought for you. If you have thoughts for me, or you want to share something with me, you want to send me a question, tell me you love the podcast, tell me you hate the podcast, whatever it is, my email address is richard@burn.media. Again, that's richard@burn.media. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and join me again next Friday for the next episode. And I'm going to have another guest coming up real soon. And if you missed the previous episode, it was Mike Tollefson from Microsoft. I had it on the previous episode. Great listen. Go back and listen to that. Great conversation. And I'm going to have another great conversation coming up in another episode of the podcast real soon. Thanks, everyone. Again, if you have a question for me, richard@burn.media. Bye-bye.